welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are continuing our 12 Days of Christmas series where I have 12 videos holiday inspired coming out to you back to back to back. If you have missed any of the previous videos, I hope you'll go after this video and find them and take a look at them and check them out. So today I'm going to make a circle tag. So I have this PinkFresh Studio tag set here that I have used in tons and tons of videos lately, but I have not used the round one. So I wanted to use that round one today. And we are going to use this die set. This is from Tim Holtz and Sizzix. I believe this was gifted with a purchase. I don't believe I bought this myself. I think it was the free with purchase kind of thing. So it is called Feathered Cardinal. I'll list it below. We're going to be doing some heat embossing. I have done a lot of die cutting off screen already. And I wanted to have kind of a dark navy background. Is this as dark as I wanted it to be? No, it is not. But I didn't have any navy cardstock in my stash. So I decided I would just go ahead and use my inks to make it. And I have some Chip Sapphire Distress Oxide ink. And I'm going to go direct to paper. And I'm just going to swirl and smush this right onto this Paper Studio cardstock. This is about 80 pounds, so it's not very thick, but it's not like copy weight paper either. I discovered that my ink pad needed to be re-inked, so you can see my little daughter's face in the camera. But this is how I re-ink them. I just shook that up really, really well. Until I could hear that ball inside move, and I didn't see any of the pigment still resting on the bottom. And I'm just going to let that sit and soak in for a little bit. When you do direct to paper, I would always recommend using an ink pad that you have a re-inker for, just because it does take a lot of ink. So I would always use an ink that you have the actual re-inker for. So this is working a lot better, and I'm just going to go over and ink up both of these strips of cardstock. I discovered that my ink pad is kind of starting to fall off of this, like the felt is really, really loose and starting to fall off. So that's also something to be aware of. I'm not a very gentle crafter, I guess, and so it didn't fall off, but it's awfully close. So I'm just going to cover this with this Chip Sapphire ink, and I'm going to set this off to the side. Like I said, I did a lot of die cutting off screen. I have my paper pouncers here. I purchased these off of Amazon, but they are pretty much identical to the, who is it? Waffle Flower Crafts has paper pouncers, and I have two sets. I have one set that is for regular inks, and then I have one for my oxides. And since I am using my oxides today, I grabbed those ones, and I cut these base layers of these cardinals out of craft cardstock. This is Paper Studio craft cardstock. Most of this is going to be covered up. The only thing that's really going to be visible is part of the chest, or the breast of the bird, the feet, and then the tail feathers. So that is where I am focusing a lot of my, this is Gathered Twigs, Distress Oxide ink. That's where I'm focusing a lot of that. I wanted the feet to be darker, so I am just going over that with another layer of ink. Is it really noticeable in the final tags? Not really, but it is something that I did. If I wanted to make it a little more prominent, I definitely could have gone back and done that again. Here I'm just making sure that I like the tones that I'm getting and that they are going to match that Chip Sapphire cardstock fairly well. Now I'm moving on to the main body of the bird, and for that I'm going to use Lumberjack Plaid and my red paper pouncer here. I think that these paper pouncers are a lot like those domed blending foams. The more you use them, the more saturated they are with ink, the better they work. I think it's a lot like that because I discovered that, you know, as I was going along, it took me a little bit to build up the color to the level that I wanted. And I know that when I watched like Amy R from Prairie Paper and Ink, she can go over with like one layer of ink and it's perfect. But she's used her paper pouncers a lot. And so I think it again is a lot like those blending foams, where the more you use them, the more saturated they are with ink, the faster and better they work. So I'm going to go through and with this lumberjack plaid on the main body of this cardinal, use that. You could have used patterned paper, you could have used plain cardstock. I just wanted to use these paper pouncers today and show you another way to color in die cuts, another way to color in images. And these are tools that I haven't used very often, and so another way to kind of use the supplies that I have spent my monies on. So I could have used Altenew artist markers or your Copic markers. You could have watercolored. Watercolored. Speaking, it's a challenge. Colored pencils, whatever you want to use, whatever is your color medium of choice, or whatever you maybe haven't used in a while, break it out and use it. If you have like backgrounds that you've made that you didn't like how they turned out, die cut from them. That's an easy way to breathe new life into them and use them in a way that maybe you didn't intend, or you hadn't planned or expected to use them. It's a way to save them from going in the trash. So I'm going to go through and apply this lumberjack plaid to the main body, and then we can move on to the feather, or the wing rather. So here I have aged mahogany, and I'm just kind of looking and seeing if I like this color combination. I wanted the wing to be darker, and I really didn't have like a darker red in my stash as far as my oxides were concerned, and I'm still debating on whether I like that or not. And so I'm going to go ahead and commit and put this aged mahogany on all of the wings. I'm doing the same thing, just paper pouncing it on. And I decided I didn't really like how the contrast between those two. So I'm using some more of that aged mahogany and very lightly pouncing over that lumberjack plaid. And I liked that a lot better. It toned down that brightness of the lumberjack plaid, and just made it look a little more of like what I had envisioned in my head. And that's another way. I mean, you could kind of call this color glazing, I guess you could say. But that was just a way to get this to look a little bit more like what I had envisioned in my head. So I just used that that aged mahogany over that lumberjack plaid, just very lightly, just to get the color combination that I liked. For the beaks and for the, I guess, mask around the eyes of this cardinal, for the beaks I used pumpkin. I'll list it below. And then for the mask I used black soot. And I'm just going to do the same thing with my coordinating paper pouncers, just pounce on that ink color. For these teeny tiny pieces, it would have been nice if I would have had like some sort of sticky mat underneath it, but I didn't think that far ahead. By the time I got into it, I was like, well, this mat's already dirty. We might as well just keep on trucking. But if you have some of those grip mats that are on the market now, that would be awesome. If you have sticky mats, you could use those. I did feel like I had to kind of chase these little pieces down quite a bit. But again, not the end of the world. I went through and went ahead and die cut out that chip sapphire cardstock that we made using that same coordinating tag die. And then I glued that to the back of a cream or ivory heavyweight Paper Studio cardstock and just glued those back to back. And I'm going to continue to let that Distress Oxide ink dry because we did direct to paper. It takes forevers and a day to dry. And I'm going to go ahead and start gluing my little cardinal together. It is very easy to layer together. If you watched the set where I made the gnomes, I mentioned that I get very intimidated very quickly when it is a critter or a layering die set that has a lot of teeny tiny pieces. I love how they look. I just get intimidated and then I don't use them and it's super sad. So this is very easy. It has the beak, the mask, the body, the wing, and then like the overall body. So it only has like what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 pieces. So it's not, and the only teeny tiny pieces are very easy to figure out where they go. So this is not a tag, or excuse me, a die that I would have purchased on my own. Like I said, I think it was free with purchase. But I've used it quite a bit in various things. And so it's been a useful die in my stash, and one that kind of eases me into layered die cutting. So I just glued this all together. It's very self-explanatory, very easy to figure out where these pieces go. And I just used liquid glue. If you wanted to, you could pop up the wing. That would be very cool. And that would look really nice. But I just chose to kind of keep it all flat today. So I'm going to finish layering all of those cardinals together. And then I'm just kind of getting an idea for my layout here. I did not keep the little dot that goes in for the eye, and so I just found some black pearls from my stash. I purchased these off of Amazon eons and eons ago, and I just used some liquid glue and glued a black pearl into the place of where the eye is. I felt like these birds needed a little bit of sparkle, so I'm taking my Spectrum Noir clear glitter brush pen and just putting some sparkle all over these birds. The Oxide inks are reactive with water, so I do occasionally go back and kind of scrub off the end of my marker just to make sure I don't get any color transfer. My sentiment today comes from this Mistletoe Wreath stamp set from Altenew. I'm just going to use this sentiment. I felt like it nestled in there really nice. This is a round tag, so I'm doing my best to make sure that the tag is upright and that the sentiment is centered and straight. But because it is round, it's really not the end of the world if it is a little crooked. But I didn't want it to be like obviously crooked. So I did try to do my best to kind of lay things out as straight as I could. I'm going to gold heat emboss these. And so before I do that, because we did direct to paper, I want to make sure that this ink is dry. So that I don't have a huge mess absolutely everywhere. So in order to test that, I'm going to go ahead and apply some anti-static powder, brush that on, and then I'm going to pour on this gold embossing powder from Ranger. This is fine detail embossing powder from Ranger, and I'm going to see if it falls right off, and it does. So I did heat set that, but I am sprinkling that on just to make sure that it is indeed dry. And then I can go through and I'm going to check each individual tag just to make sure. But then we can go ahead and again, treat with your anti-static powder tool, apply your VERSAMARK ink or your sticky ink of choice. And I do stamp that down. I think I did once. I didn't feel like it needed to be stamped multiple times. I just stamped it down once and then poured on that gold embossing powder from Ranger, and I will repeat that for each of these tags. Again, trying to make sure that that tag is as upright as possible, and just eyeball it. And then I'm going to go ahead and heat set them all at one time. You know that your embossing powder is heat set when it is shiny and smooth. It's really easy to tell with your metallic embossing powders because they do go from like grainy and dull to shiny and smooth. So it's fairly easy to tell when those are done. And I'm just going to heat set them all at one time. The two in the from is going to come from this Hero Art stamp set, and I will list that below. And I'm going to use that same Chip Sapphire ink to stamp this two in the from. This is in a scripty font. I thought it was really pretty, and the size fit this back of this circle tag really well. And so I'm just going to stamp that out using that same Chipped Sapphire Distress Oxide ink. And I will stamp that on the back of each of these tags. Once again, just trying to make sure that this is as upright as possible and not super crooked. And we'll stamp that out on the back of each of these tags. For a little bit of interest, I did decide to pop up these cardinals with some foam tape, foam squares. These are actually from Dollar Tree. And I felt like that was a nice touch to each of these. I felt like there was a lot of open space above that sentiment and to the right of this cardinal, so I decided that I was going to add some splatter. I had some ink that kind of smeared, or I got some liquid or something on one of those cardinals, and I was trying to figure out a way to fix it. And so I was like, well, let's just splatter, because that'll put some splatter or, snow, quote unquote, in the background. And so I was kind of trying to lean into kind of a mistake that I had. So I'm just going to add some splatter to each of these tags. I sprayed water into my hand and then sprinkled it over these tags. And I did that twice just to make sure that I got some good, quote unquote, snow. And then I thought, this needs more. So I have Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Gold. Yes, I believe it's called Perfect Gold. And I'm just going to scoop a little bit out onto an acrylic block, spray a little bit of water on it just to get it kind of moving and liquidy. And then I'm going to use my block to, and a water brush pen to just kind of add some gold splatter to these, just playing off of the sentiment. And then I'm going to add some gold twine to this. Gold screams Christmas to me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because the 3 wise men brought gold to Christ. Frankincense, gold, and myrrh. Maybe that's why, but gold just screams Christmas to me. So I chose to do the gold splatter. I did get a big blob in a couple places, and I just tried to kind of pick that up with a dry paper towel as best I could. But again, these are handmade. More than likely, these are going to be chucked in the trash after the gift is opened. And so freaking out and spending tons and tons of time on them is not my jam. That's not my philosophy when it comes to tags. If it is a tag that I think is going to be kept by the person, or a tag that I intend to be kept by the person, I do spend a little more time and would worry more about those things. But with a tag like this, that's not something I'm going to focus a lot of time on. So here those are all dry. The splatter is dry. You can see the sparkle from the glitter brush pen and the gold shiny splatters. Here I have some Hobby Lobby 1/8 inch gold twine. This is about 8 to 10 inches long. I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to put that looped end through the front of the tag, and then I'm going to open up that loop and take the loose ends and thread those through that loop and then pull it tight. And then I will kind of trim off any of the excess just to kind of level and even out those loops. And then I'm going to take this white, this is cream baker's twine, also from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to make a little bow. I am not a good bow maker, y'all. This took me a crazy amount of time, but I'm just going to make a little tiny bow and kind of trim off its ends, and then I'm going to take some liquid glue and glue it right underneath that hole for this tag, using some liquid glue and using some reverse tweezers to kind of hold that in place while I do the rest of the tag. So just a teeny tiny dot of glue right there, put my little wonky bow in place, and then take my pair of reverse tweezers and hold that in place. And then these are the tags complete. So thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope if you have missed any of the other tags in the series that you will go back and check them out. I appreciate you spending time with me. I hope you feel inspired to do some holiday crafting. And until then, we will see you next time. Bye.